break the laws, ain't here for some more. Cause we play you. Bass on the ground like Cali shake. Don't turn it past 7, it's for sugar quake. Play like Freddie Ho. Play like Freddie Ho. Twitch.tv/. Play like Freddie Ho, and this it or dash. Turn it up. Play like Freddie Ho. Turn it up.
Welcome to Sweet Fingers, where the flavors of Jamaica come by. Our talented chefs blend authentic Jamaican ingredients with a touch of love and passion. From tender oxtail stew to flavorful coconut shrimp to our snapper fish, we serve up the best of Jamaican cuisine. Whether you're looking for a taste of Jamaica or an unforgettable dining experience, Sweet Fingers is the place to be. Feel the rhythm, taste the spice, and immerse yourself in the vibrant Jamaican nightlife at our restaurant, where every night becomes a celebration of island flavors and unforgettable experiences. Come and experience the soulful flavors of Jamaica today. Nobody does it like Sweet Fingers, baby.
What's up with it? Happy New Year, everybody. 2026, we here. I go by the name of the Tykoon. Igor beats on the ones and twos. And,
what it do?
You know, we back, you know. That's all I'm saying. I'm back on Bay Life Radio, you know. So this is the return of Tykoon. New year, new movement, new show. You know what I'm saying? So this is what it is. Street Level Impact Podcast. It's going to be airing every Thursday from 1 to 3. Make sure that y'all tune in. Make sure y'all like and share and subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend. And we're going to get it in. That's all I got to say. You know, this is the first of many, so, you know, it's only right that we kick it off. There ain't no other way to start the year, so we're going to start it off right. So, yeah, you know, first I want to tell you a little bit about the podcast. And basically, you know, what our purpose is. And it's kind of self-explanatory in the name, you know. For those that know, of course, you know, we definitely, you know, here at Bay Life Radio, we're really big on community. You know, we participate in a lot of different projects and activities that's going on throughout the Bay Area in Northern California. And, you know, this is a way of life for us, you know what I'm saying? So basically that's what this is about. We repping for our section, but definitely in a whole different way, you know what I mean? So it's, you know, we're gonna talk about a little bit of everything on here, you know, but this is more about us. That's really all I can say. So, you know, we definitely gonna be discussing topics that are going on in our community. You know, feel free to offer up your opinions, you know, and definitely offer up some solutions. You know what I mean? That's all I gotta say about that. And yeah, you know, hopefully y'all enjoy this ride with us. You know, so with that being said, I guess let's kick it off, man. Igor, what's happening?
What it do? What it do? What's happening with it, man? Hey,
Much.
we back on this thing, huh?
Yeah, so I was just wondering. I mean, I kind of already know, but yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the New Year so far? Well, how was your New Year's?
It was cool. It was cool. You know, we had another New Year's party that turned out great. Everybody came through. It was safe. You know, everybody made it home safe. Wasn't no problems. You feel me? That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Yeah. It came in productive. You know, I came in working. They say you stay in how you come in, so I
Right.
came in working.
Right.
Yeah, it was cool. How was yours?
I mean, it was chill, man. Like you said, the weather kind of,
Yeah.
you know, had me, especially because even when looking at the weather, it was like, okay, we had, you know, a period where it was all sunshine, but then it was like, yeah, right on New Year's, and then even right now outside, I know people are like, why he's sitting there with his hood on, but yeah, it's definitely raining outside.
It's raining in Cali.
Yeah, you know, so. But surprisingly, from what I saw, I mean, it didn't really damper mine. I'll be honest with you. I was knocked out early. You know, I'm getting old.
Right.
Yeah. By the time I ate and you know a shot or two, I didn't even make it for the ball to drop.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, you're the second person that told me that.
Yeah, I mean, what the weather, like you said, the weather makes a difference because.
Make you hibernate.
Yeah, it wasn't just rain, it was cold. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's what I was about to say earlier is like the, you know, climate change and all of that stuff they're talking about is definitely real. We've been feeling the effects. So, you know, it's been, you know, 40 degrees
Right.
on regular out here for the last few weeks. That's not normal. So, you know, when you talking, you know, closer to snow temperatures in addition with the rain, and that's crazy. And so, yeah, I was out for a little bit yesterday, but even just going to the store running errands, you know, my car got the good heater. So, yeah.
Make you want to not get out.
Exactly. So it's like a combination of being in the car, being, you know, super warm, 80, 90 degrees, then getting out, it's cold and raining, then getting in the house, and the heater back on. You know?
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna go to sleep fast. But it was cool. You know, like I said, other than that, you know, kind of the rain had me looking at it a certain way at first, but yeah, I don't have no complaints. I noticed though, there was a lot of stuff going on out here. They shut the freeway down, the bridge.
What?
Excuse me, not the
Again
bridge.
last
Yeah.
night?
Yeah, people.
Oh, wow.
I seen clips on the internet, and I'm just, you know, I don't really want to start it off like that, but I guess we're gonna start it off like that. That's a question that we gotta ask y'all out there in the world, and definitely that I want to ask you, Igor, how you feel about that? They was literally the videos that I seen. People were out of their cars, stopped their cars on the bridge to watch the fireworks.
Wow.
Literally.
You know, it's crazy because on one hand, I understand the energy, I understand the excitement, but at the same time, we gotta have consideration. You know, it was probably a few people back there that was getting to work or just got off work, trying to get home, didn't want to be involved in all that, and now you got them stuck on the bridge, hundreds of feet up in the air. You know what I mean? Above the water.
Above the water.
Yeah, to watch the fireworks. Yeah. Let me get home. Let me get off the bridge. And y'all stop playing on the bridge like that.
Thank you.
That's how I feel about it. Maybe it's my age. I'm getting old too, but y'all stop playing on the bridge like that. Y'all too high in the air to be with the foolishness. You know?
gonna say that was kind of my opinion on it because when you think about it, I mean, I agree with you. I understand it, but to an extent I don't because that reminds me of a time where mentally I wasn't necessarily making all the right
smart
decisions.
decisions, right?
You know what I mean? And so to me, all of it. I mean, yeah, I ain't gonna say I never thought about it or it'd be fun to be a part of, but if it was, it had to be done the right way. So like all the side shows on the freeway, just the freeways period, let alone the bridge. But
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
Shutting down the freeway, shutting down the bridge, and actually getting out of your cars and stuff. Now if
Keep in mind, you hundreds of feet up in the air.
right, and that's the other thing.
Above the
I'm not the best swimmer.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm not the best swimmer. And I'm not necessarily afraid of heights, but there's a certain level, like you're saying too, where you know
When you hit the water, is you gonna be able to swim?
right, because you can you can injure yourself depending on how high up you are. But yeah, I was thinking about that because we done had a couple incidents in the past year even. There was one just a few months ago where a teenager fell off the freeway right by the Carquinez Bridge going to Vallejo. And it was a sideshow. And, and what he did was he actually, he hopped off. So like you were saying, it was right around the area where you high up in the air. You know what I mean? Where
Right.
the bridge is actually leaving
the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the freeway split at the same time. And what he did was, and I guess some other people did it too, but he would try to jump from one side of the freeway
To the other.
over to the other and didn't make it.
Stop playing.
Didn't make it. And did not make it.
And
I'm very
did not-
serious. It was,
And fell and plummeted
yes,
down.
yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
See?
I have to look up the article who did, but I want to say that was like 2-3 months. It was like right around Halloween, I think.
Wow. See, they they don't even have the right idea of the sideshow. They taking it in the totally wrong direction. We had a sideshow, but I can't remember us having it on the freeway when we was young.
Right.
That's just what we didn't do.
Well, and then too, like you said, it's a different generation, and it's the concept of it is different. Like for example, we still call them sideshows. In LA they call them takeovers. You know what I mean? Where they basically just take over the street.
Right.
So it's a combination of, Fast and the Furious, or you know what I mean? Where they just want to literally just take over the street. And I think that that's what gave them the idea. I know other places they do it too, even with the bikes and stuff. But like you're saying, just to take over the freeway, to take over the bridge.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, in other cities, I can understand it, especially if it, and I guess I'll say that too, like, a smaller bridge maybe. Like, we do got the Alameda bridges, for example, and that still don't make it okay, but again, if you guys are just trying to temporary, it's not really wide enough either, I don't think, if you want to, like, do donuts or nothing on those bridges.
The whole thing of holding up traffic
Right.
with you got working mothers and fathers traveling to and fro. You don't know who's in that traffic that's really on a schedule, that really has something important to do to get there.
Even emergency vehicles.
Yeah, even emergency vehicles, right. And you got the whole freeway blocked off. It negates the fun. It don't make no sense. To me, it makes the fun ignorant. I understand the thrill, but I just don't understand the sense in it.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was pretty wild though. And then at the same time, it's like, why they not able to get that under control?
Right.
Especially it's like no one's spending all this money. That's another thing that we finna jump right into. Since we already talking about freeways and bridges. But, y'all charging all this money out here.
say that.
Yeah, it's a lot of changes going on in regards to the road and infrastructure. And I'm not necessarily mad at it, cause, you know, like I was telling people in different conversation, it's about time. You know, they've talked about it in politics and different things, whereas like, you know, our infrastructure is in, I don't, is bad shape is not the word, but, you know, like the freeways, you got, I mean, the same thing, we talking about these bridges, but they had I believe the San Rafael Richmond Bridge, they recently, you know, had to shut some of it down to do some work on it. You had pieces of the bridge actually just falling off.
Right.
You know, that's how old, or, you know, not necessarily how old it is, but how long it has been since it's even been, you know, upgraded or had any work done on it. And so it's like, yeah, with these infrastructures, we definitely, I mean, we're not gonna sit here and talk about what you guys did with the money necessarily, when you should have been putting into that, but now,
Come on.
right, now that they wanna,
Well, we should be talking about it.
well, I mean, we have before, it's about who paying attention and who not.
Our roads is terrible out here.
Right, and we know a lot of that money was going to other stuff over the years and during previous presidential campaigns. But, yeah, it's like you said, from potholes on the freeways to, like we said, bridges needing repairs. It's a lot that needs to be done. You know, widening of the roads, adding extra lanes, and y'all constantly, you know, with the fast track being implemented on all the freeways now, you know, there's really no such thing as a carpool lane anymore. You know, you gotta basically to use that lane or even to go a certain distance, you know, some places you getting charged extra $4 or $5 per quarter mile, you know? So it's like, if we gonna do all of that, then I think that they should be taking, you know, as far as highway patrol and stuff, they need to be doing a little better job. Because we're paying all this money, like you said, and then I'm just trying to get back and forth from work. If the freeway can get shut down, then what am I paying for? You know, what am I paying all these extra fees and stuff for? And the roads is trash.
And you have a lot less people working. You got at least about 60 to 100 toll takers that you don't have to pay no more.
Right.
And you raise the price. Where's all this money going?
Right.
You know, it's $10 across the bridge now.
Well, yeah, depending on the bridge. That's what I was gonna say too. Yeah, as y'all know, today is the first, and so with today being the first, the bridge tolls have went up on some of the different bridges here in the Bay Area. I know the Carquinez Bridge going to Vallejo, it went up by 50 cents. So yeah, at first it was $8, now it's $8.50. And then the following year after, yeah, Jesus, that's right. It don't make no sense when y'all think about it. Especially, I mean, I cross bridges twice a day, you know, and sometimes more depending on what kind of traveling I gotta do. But when you think about that, you done spent, you know, if you depending on how many bridges you cross it, even if you 4 bridge tolls a day, that's still, you know, $24. You know what I mean? And depending on the car, that's according to half tank of gas. And then, you know, like you said, it's a monopoly too, because where's the money going? Because if you don't pay those bridge tolls, or you don't pay those fast track invoices, they go up. And they keep going up. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'll be honest with you, I saw one, I think it got up to like 100, so, you know, all from $8. So, you guys definitely gotta pay attention, you know, plan it if you're going somewhere. But I don't know how to feel about that. Compared to, on one side, I understand, you know, cost, but like you were saying, it doesn't make sense. Like out here, we don't have no bridge toll workers, so there's no employees that they're paying. places like on the East Coast, for example, their bridge tolls, I believe some of them are already like at $15. So we ain't even seen nothing yet. Yeah, like on, I think New York, New Jersey, some of those areas, that bridge toll is already, yeah, it's been double digits. So, you know, we kind of got off easy. But again, if we're having to pay these amounts, why are the roads in the condition that they in? You know, because I don't understand that at all. We're paying way too much, like I said, to the point where you can't even pay for the repairs that the roads is causing. But you steady paying for the, you know, for the roads still. So I don't get it, but hopefully we start seeing some other changes. I know that they just stopped. It was a pass for the electric. Was it the electric vehicles, or was the air? I forgot. Cause they had a pass, kind of like the fast track.
Yeah, no, they just revoked the pass.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. So they took that out. So you know.
That was the incentive to buy an electric vehicle.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now that program is no longer going on. So it's like it's still traffic. You know, it's typical not even typical Bay Area. It got worse, in my opinion. There's way more cars on the street. You got more people that's not from here that's commuting.
Right.
But yeah, if like those people, like you said, that program was stopped, and it's all about fast track. Like, what are we? You know, what does that guarantee us? Like, since we have to, you know, and we don't have to pay it. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to start a revolt or a riot, but, you know, if we were to say, hey, why are we paying this amount? And everybody refused to pay, there's not too much that they can do about it. You know, they can't just take all the cars off the road. You know, they can't even stop people from shutting down the freeway or the bridge, you know. But yeah, it's like how does that change things? I mean, what is your thoughts on that as far as even, you know, like I said, transportation, like being charged to actually be on the freeway is no longer free. It ain't just crossing the bridge.
The payway, huh?
Yeah.
For real. And that's crazy because, you know, having a driving job, you think about it, you know, they charging $45 to drive from Oakland to Fremont if you want to use the fast track lane. And that's just the whole way there, you know, 15. And that's crazy for our roads to be this tore up. You would think that, you know, with the all the money they saving, like not paying all the toll workers. And I remember when that used to be a good job.
Yeah.
Like
I knew somebody that worked there too.
Yeah, if you had a toll taker's job, you had a good life. You know, you had a nice car, you had a nice house, you was balling. You know? And now it's like all that money y'all saving, the roads is worse. The roads so crazy in Oakland that they have become a viral meme. That's crazy. My friend has a viral meme about the potholes in Oakland. And it's really catching traction. Like, that's something to have. Yeah. Shouts out to KP, Illusions.
Yeah, and then a lot of people were saying too, you know, because I blew a tire out. This is probably about a month ago.
Oh, the pothole?
I believe it was. I'm not sure, but I think so. It was right here actually on the 580 on the freeway. And but you know, people was in the comments like, yeah, you know, you can contact them and they'll reimburse for it, this and that. And, you know, I know people that have done that.
Yeah, I've heard
on the
that.
street, but the freeway, you know, I wasn't necessarily sure how that works. But again, I would think it'd be easier for them to just fix it, you know.
Right.
But
They got the money.
yeah, they got to do something about that. Though. Like you're saying, even for people that's driving jobs, like, you know, whether you delivering or, you know, even as far as like Uber or Lyft, different stuff is like, okay, well, who's responsible?
Right.
You know, for this wear and tear
there's some places in Oakland, if you drive dodging the potholes, it look like you drunk driving
Yeah,
or playing some kind of video game.
yeah. But if you don't, you're tired.
Right.
Like I
Suspension.
said, I blew the tire out. I had to go. I ended up having to go to. I was able to get it replaced at tire shop that was closest to me, but honestly, I had to go to the tire that was slightly off. You see
Oh,
what
wow.
I'm saying? And then the rest of the places, it was like when I did go to try to replace tires, I actually, the car that I was in, I guess, you know, the tire size was, you know, a pretty popular tire size. So it's like, of course, you know, I tried to go budget friendly at first, and a lot of places, they was out of the used tires, but then for, you know, the new tires, they wanted almost double. So I had to go to three places just to get tires. And then I ended up, the tire blew out of gear. So then I had to do it all over again, you know? And that's a lot of money, like you said, to, you know, let alone anything else. Cause I think, one time I ended up, I don't know if my oil pan got cracked or something, but I kind of believe it had to do with that too, cause, you know, on the roads is potholes, as far as on the streets when I mean the roads, is potholes, but then, you know, we also got these quote unquote speed bumps that they have in the street, and I'm skeptical of those too, cause depending on where you at and how they get put in, it seemed to me like they, those don't get put in properly, you know. I could say, for example, on the street that my mom lives on, right? They got a speed bump there, but at the top of it, it's cracked.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and when I say cracked, like, you know, like say you take cornbread out of the oven. So you know how you take cornbread out of the oven and out the top of it, you know.
It's cracked like it bust open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing speed bumps that are like that right here in Oakland, and it's like, you know, there's been times too where even just going over that, you know, especially, again, depending on the kind of car you're driving. If you're driving a car that's a little lower to the ground, going over that.
Oh, yeah, you gonna scrape.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, all of it, I think, needs to be done over, you know.
Yeah. The whole idea of the speed bump thing needs to be looked at because, like you were saying, some of the streets got speed bumps so big, oh man, you'll tear your whole bottom side of your car up. And then in some streets, you got the little speed bump there like it's not even there.
Right.
So,
And I noticed that, like Hayward and other places.
yeah, you got the little bitty ones.
Yeah, where the police can just go right over, where they got breaks in between, where, you know, you can drive literally right over it with no problem.
Yeah.
But like you said, then you get over here, they all uneven and stuff. We gotta do better out here, you know, and that goes for all cities here in the Bay Area, cause, you know, what y'all doing? Y'all charging us too much for the stuff not to be right. That's all I can say about that, you know. Other places, the streets is kept up a little bit more. Y'all just now started really making a difference with the homeless situation. I don't know where y'all sent them to. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's certain places, certain main streets where I see they cleared a lot of that up. But, you know, like I said, yeah, infrastructure is very important. I mean, if we, like I said, if the cars can't work, if we're not able to get down the road on the freeway or across the bridge to get to work, then there won't be no work. I mean, a lot of people still work remote, but, you know, on a day-to-day of function, you know, to do certain things, getting kids to school, even going grocery shopping, you know, you shouldn't have to worry about, you know, a messed up road and being charged to go, like I said, every few miles. You already paying for the car, paying for the registration, paying for the insurance, paying for the gas. You know, then you have to make these other 3 or 4 payments. That's a lot of paying. You know, so, I don't know, man. But it's a lot of other stuff that's going on today. don't really think that it's gonna necessarily offset some of these costs and stuff that we are talking about. I guess it's supposed to be a step in the right direction though. With that, I'm talking about the minimum wage increase that just happened. Yeah, so again, it's the first, a lot of new things are in place. Um, you know, from bridge tolls, the minimum wages went up in California, along with a few other states. Minimum wage has went up this year as of January in California, Arizona, Washington, New Jersey, New York, Michigan, um, Missouri, Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, Hawaii, Colorado, Connecticut, South Dakota, Virginia, Vermont. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know what necessarily, I mean, of course the prices range, so I'm only kind of concerned with California, but ours went up to $16.90, which is a 40-cent increase from last year. Now, federal minimum wage is still like seven something, right? Like $7, $8. I remember it was under 8. So, but of course, you know, states have their own individual minimum wage laws, as well as counties. So, with that being said, you know, it say minimum wage, but that's just general for the state. But if you look a little further in depth, you know, it's more depending on where you're at. I think in the city, minimum wage just went in San Francisco just went up to $19.18. So that's, you know, above the California average now is $16.90. But again, San Francisco, for example, hey, it's expensive.
Right.
It's expensive, and it's about time. You know, also for healthcare workers in California, I believe the minimum wage is now going to be starting at $24, $25 an hour, and for fast food workers, it's now $20 an hour. Now, you know, I'm not mad. Ultimately, I know people like, oh, it's fast food and they don't deserve it, but everybody deserves it. The cost of living out here, number one, is why it's necessary. Number two, you know, hey, we remember from the pandemic that these are essential jobs. You know, these are jobs that keep the economy going. You know, so yeah, the people that are in the service fields, you know, they're the ones that's actually, you know, keeping the city moving, you know, keeping the country moving on a day to day, because if they're not there to do those jobs, then it's not going to be, you know, so I don't see a problem necessarily with that. And again, too, I mean, it's still not enough, to be honest with you, because until they kind of, you know, level out some of the other, you know, economic issues in regards to, you know, housing costs, things like that. I know, like they said, we're coming out of, you know, quote unquote financial crisis. We still, you know, the country is in debt, and different things, but again, it doesn't seem like that when we see money getting sent to other countries, you know, so, I think that if they don't have to keep increasing wages, I think they're gonna have to lower costs on certain stuff. But as of right now, I mean, you know, to me it seems like a good thing. I'm pretty sure those who receive the increases, you know, they need it, and you know what I mean. We all need it, to be honest with you. Like I said, the way prices is going up on food and, you know, just everything you think of, medical insurance, all kind of stuff. So, you know, yeah, that's some of the stuff that has been changing in regards to wage increases, minimum wage. And like I said, if you guys want to look, because I don't want to just throw the numbers out there without double checking, because I don't have it in front of me right now. But I know certain areas like the Mountain View, different areas where I can't remember if that's San Mateo County or Santa Clara. I want to say it's San Mateo County still. But like I said, certain counties and cities, you know, their minimum wage is a whole different price. You know, excuse me, it's a whole different wage than other places. So you might want to just double check to see, you know, so you know ahead of time. Or hey, and I'm not saying you get minimum wage, but I'm just saying you might notice an increase. You should notice an increase on in your check. You know what I'm saying? If you get somewhere around that, or base, you know, base pay at a job. So, you know, keep your eye out for that. But yeah, I believe I have to double check as far as who's the highest minimum wage this year. I know the highest minimum wage of last year was Washington D.C., which was $17.95 an hour. So, you know, yeah, you know, like you said, hey, to me, fast food I thought was a minimum wage, so minimum wage job. So fast food, if it's at 20, then we already, you know, in the runnings. It's a good look. But yeah, I wanted to talk about some of the other laws that changed too. Let's see, we got right here in Oakland starting. When is the 4th? That's this Sunday, right? Yeah, today's the 1st. It's Thursday. Yeah, so Sunday. So starting Sunday, January 4th, in Oakland, you know, y'all might want to pay attention to this, especially because I know we got some events that's gonna be coming up downtown, you know, Black History Month and other stuff like that. But starting this Sunday, parking is no longer free downtown Oakland on Sundays. So, you know, I don't necessarily know what that's about, but again, that kind of ties into what we were saying about the roads and infrastructure. You know, for the longest I can remember, not just out here in the Bay, but anywhere, you know, typically on a Sunday, those are the days that you don't have to like pay for metered parking, things like that. You know, typically, though, Sunday is a day where a lot of businesses are closed. You know, a lot of places are closed. You know, whether it's you know, for religious reasons. I know originally that's how it was starting, where Sunday is supposed to be the day of rest. So a lot of businesses, I mean, just period, you know, whether it's stores or other businesses, they tend to not be open on Sundays. You see pawn shops, hair salons, you know, to my knowledge, there's some that, you know, they don't open on Sundays. Then there are other ones that do, you know, they choose different off days. But typically in the downtown area in any city, I can't necessarily think of it being that many stores open to where the traffic or, you know, even parking is that oversaturated to where you guys, first of all, like I said, charging money. You know, you're just trying to get what you can. But, you know, again, it's not, in some places, it's not a lot of traffic on Sundays in downtown areas to necessarily be charging all of that for people to park. But I guess that's what they're deciding to do now out here in Oakland. I know, too, they're trying to revamp downtown Oakland, you know, as far as bringing in different restaurants, different stores and businesses. And again, I'm all for that. I don't necessarily see how charging for parking though is going to help them. If anything, I think it's going to make people not necessarily want to go shopping on Sunday. Because I know me, certain places, you know, like for example, in the city, I typically, if I can avoid it, I won't drive down to the city because there's hardly ever any parking, and you gotta worry about tickets. You know, so I try to avoid that, or I take public transportation down there. The city is a little different from Oakland, though. With that being said, it's way more congested downtown. You know, they got the autonomous vehicles riding around. They, bus lanes in the middle of the street. Same thing that they're doing here in Oakland, but it's to the point out there in the city where it's literally parts that no cars are allowed there anymore. So you can't even drive anymore. So that makes it even harder because you guys is like, um, you're sizing down on being able to accommodate everybody in that regard as far as, people driving their own vehicles. And again, like we said, just the cost of everything, the cost of parking in private parking garages and different things like that is ridiculous. And it doesn't keep your car safe. So it's like we're being overcharged on this end for this, or then we gotta worry about a ticket for that. And I just don't think it's right. But what do you think? I mean, you think it's gonna affect shopping or people, going downtown and having to pay for it?
Definitely, definitely, it's going to impact shopping. We'll see that first. I don't think it'll impact it a lot, but it'll definitely impact it. Because at the end of the day, people still gonna go down there and park.
Right. But why Sunday though?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Why Sunday? I mean,
never in the history of traffic have we ever had to park and pay on Sunday.
Right.
And it circles back to the first question. You making all this extra money on the roads and highways and traffic, but the roads and highways are well below satisfactory.
Right.
Where's all this money going?
And we gonna ask that all day, cause we see where just like it's been some other stuff that have happened in the news recently with funds, whether it was for schools and other stuff, different programs, funds that were allocated to certain things that just went missing. I know there was one where somebody is I gotta double check to see what it was, but they had it was a nice amount of money too. But I think it had to do with the school district.
They having a situation right now in Minnesota where all the federal funds going to Minnesota have been frozen because Minnesota has been caught stealing billions of dollars.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how do you explain that? how do you explain that? And then if y'all know who got the money, you can't go get it back. Like that's crazy. Yeah, and all of it ain't gonna happen. Not like I said, billions of dollars, they don't just disappear. You know what I mean? But and then too, like you said, just from the city standpoint, like I know that recently, like we missed out on opportunities for funding for different programs like regarding homelessness or housing and other stuff, all because the people that work downtown didn't necessarily go through the procedures in time. They didn't apply or they didn't fulfill certain requirements to receive the funds. So it's a combination of both. Because like you said, how are you late to handle business like that on one side, or then on the other side, stealing the money?
Right.
We definitely need to keep our eyes open on that and what's going on. I don't want to get political right now, but I just I just put it like that. Keep your eye on them, because I be seeing certain stuff, and in my opinion, everybody's scamming, one way or another. So I I just be trying to pay attention to
All
what
the politicians scamming, I believe.
yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, because the whole thing is, how are they shutting down the government and still getting paid? How is things in the government not working and they still getting paid? You know?
Yeah. That's like you said, that's a whole nother conversation in itself. But we've been asking that for a minute now. And it don't look like they plan on answering. Trump's doing what he wants. And it seems like everybody else is too. At this point. You know, I guess that's the new politics nowadays. But yeah, let me speak on some of these so we can move on, I guess. About laws that are in effect in 2026. One of them is, well, this one doesn't go into effect right now. It goes into effect in July. The No Secret Police Act. I know you heard about that, right?
Yeah.
So that's they gotta take off their masks. You know, so most local, state, and federal law enforcement officers are now required to, they can't wear a mask. And so, a lot of people, COVID for one, where people will wear a mask, but it's not COVID no more, and those aren't the type of masks for COVID anyway. A lot of you guys, and I mean, of course, it was happening on the street too. The baklavas or the other type of masks that typically are used for skiing or being in certain weather conditions, or for example, being used by the military, because that's what they be using them for too. Keep sand out of their face, different stuff when they're overseas. But or like I said, being in extremely cold temperatures, that's what those are for. I don't understand what police need to cover their face for. So to me, I mean, I thought it was kind of a no-brainer. I don't see what the pushback is, because again, you're a law enforcement officer. How are you faring for your safety?
Right.
In that regard, because if you're not doing nothing wrong, you ain't got nothing to worry about. I mean, I've never, like you said, this is the first that I've really heard of that, whereas officers is like, hey, they need to keep protect their identity or whatever. I don't think that that's right, because that's not what they signed up for. They swore an oath, like you said, and took a job, and the job is for them to actually be a peace officer. And I think that the wording is kind of funny, because like you said, that's what they're originally supposed to be, peace officers, instead of the whole law enforcement, you know what I mean? Because like they try to lean on the enforcement part a lot, and I think that a lot of them they abuse their authority, in some instances, or overstep, and I think that that's just a version of it, because like I said, you're not a SWAT team. I guess, this ain't a video game.
Right.
So the same way, like, we be trying to tell these youngsters out here in the streets, y'all gotta take the mask off, you this and that, typically when you see somebody with a mask on, they're up to no good. And we also know that with quote-unquote law enforcement, there's history of them, treating people wrong, you know what I'm saying? Actually hurting people, or some of them being caught up in criminal activities themselves. But like I said, abuse of power, excessive force. So no, you shouldn't be allowed to cover up your face, because at that point it could be covering up a crime. What if somebody can't see your badge number? But what if your badge number is covered up? And they know what we're talking about, because there's plenty of instances where officers have got caught doing that, turning their body cams off, covering up their badge number. So yeah, you covering up your badge number in your face, you might as well be a criminal. I know that you're even the real police. But yeah, so the No Secret Police Act, that doesn't go in effect till actually, July. But other laws that go into effect right now, are as follows. Traffic laws, there's a couple of stuff that's changed in regards to that. One of them is Assembly Bill 544, and Assembly Bill 544 states that electric bicycles must have a red reflectors on or flashing red lights with built-in reflectors on the rear of the bikes at all times when the bikes are in use, not just at night. I agree with that. I think that they should have taken a lot of this into consideration when they were making these laws, creating bike lanes, especially when they knew that they were going to be implementing electric bikes. Because electric bikes are motorized, you know what I mean? So it's just like a motorcycle or a scooter or moped, anything, any of it that's motorized, when you think about it, it's like, okay, you know, anything can happen. And they're actually on the road moving with vehicles, which I guess is kind of the whole idea of building them like that in the first place. But there's pros and cons to that, just like we see on the road with people with motorcycles. You know, ever since they switched that law a few years back, where motorcycles could actually go in between lanes on the freeway.
They can legally lane split?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was a few years ago when they
Wow.
reinstated that. And so is like that causes problems. I've seen a lot of close accidents because, you know, they zooming through even when it's traffic time, you know, you don't necessarily see them out of your side mirror, you know, depending on how fast they're moving up. And if it's traffic time or say for example rain or anything like that, but you're trying to switch a lane, you know, and last minute, you know, they just zoom up out of nowhere, there's really nothing you can do.
Right.
So it's like, to me, I think that's caused more accidents. And the same thing with electric bikes, you know. So I think that it's a no-brainer. They should definitely have lights on. They definitely need to stay in their designated lane. And yeah, I mean, shit, everybody else has to abide by these rules. They should too. Another law is Assembly Bill 289, which allows Department of Transportation to establish a work zone speed safety pilot program, and it's going to use fixed or mobile radar systems to detect speed violations. Okay, so they'll be taking pictures of your license plate, and tickets will be issued to the vehicle's registered owner per Assembly Bill 289. I thought that was something that was already going on, you know, certain freeways. I know they had spoke about that before we implemented lights, cameras, to record, you know, people speeding. Same thing with on the street, you know, with people running red lights, different things like that. I know they have discussed it before over the years, so I guess now they're probably implementing it all the way across the board. So, you know, that's something to look out for no matter what part of Cali you're in. There's another law. I like this one. It's called the Slow Down or Move Over Law. Okay? And so, the Slow Down or Move Over Law is expanding to include any highway maintenance vehicle or stop vehicle using its lights or warning devices. This law, they've already had this law in place in Oregon. So, like, if you're on the freeway and if you see like hazard lights flashing, especially if it's a work vehicle like a Caltrans vehicle working on the highway, if it's the police and they have somebody pulled over, ambulance, anything like that. In Oregon, the law is that you have to move completely over into a whole other lane. yeah, so it's not to, you know, I mean, it makes sense because you have a lot of accidents that have happened like that because, you know, people don't necessarily pay attention, they're not judging the distance, you know, so it might be somebody pulled over on the shoulder, they, you know, they might not be all the way over, or they might not necessarily have that much of a shoulder room, and, like you said, you know, accidents happen that way too, you know, especially even with police pulling people over, you know, sometimes depending on where they're pulling you over at, like I said, you might not be working with a bunch of room to begin with, so, I think that's cool, you know, as far as with safety, but, also I believe in move over anyway, as far as the way some of these people are driving on the road, like if you don't know how to merge, or if you're not necessarily sure where you're going, that's what the two right lanes are for, the slower lanes, you know what I mean? Not you holding up traffic, you're supposed to go with the flow of traffic, and, you know, you driving slow in the fast lane. I remember a time where police would pull people over for that, because they said that they're imposing on traffic, you know what I mean? But again, I guess we don't have as much enforcement going on the highways as we should because, you know, y'all got them operating on the street. That's a whole other topic too. But yeah, slow down and move over. What other laws is going on? Low cost insulin. Senate Bill 40 will cap insulin copays at $35 for a 30-day supply. You know, so that's another thing that I know has been affecting people as far as the economy is, you know, health care, health insurance, the cost of it, the cost of medicines, appointments, you know, any type of care, you know, and again, I think that that's something that needs to get addressed as well, you know, other countries, they have cures for certain stuff, different things where it's made ready to the public and it's given to them at affordable prices. And this being the United States, you know, we used to brag and boast about being at the front of the line. You know, we came to a lot of stuff, but now that the truth is out, is that we're not. And if we are, you guys are choosing instead to, you know, overcharge us for it. Which still, again, it's not making any sense. And especially if you got the actual employees like the healthcare workers, the medical workers, nurses, doctors, and, you know, EMTs, all of that, where they're not getting paid, they're steadily going on strike or having to ask for wage increases. So it's like, where's that money going? It should be allocated to the right channels to even all of this out. So yeah, hopefully, you know, cause like even me myself, just a little sidebar, I went to the doctor, you know, and everything was good, but it's something to still think about. I'm at that age, you know, they told me I was kind of at pre-diabetic levels, you know, I'm not heavy on the sugar, so, you know, it's not nothing necessarily for me to worry about, but it makes me think about it and the realization of how close to home stuff like this is about, you know, medical costs, medical care, and even insulin, you know what I'm saying? When you're getting older, you also, things like high blood pressure, things like diabetes, you know, we gotta keep all of that in mind, we gotta take care of ourselves, watch our diets, but definitely not sit here and let them overcharge us and stuff, cause we still gotta live. So yeah, and then and then also, my insulin pens, basically, you'll be able to get like 5 3 milliliter pens for like $55. Yeah, so it's stuff that we gotta keep in mind, Joe. We gotta stay on top of this as far as, I know, like I was saying about even just medical expenses, period. My mom had mentioned that to me the other day because she had an appointment. and I guess she ended up not going. And it was like, well, why you didn't go? And before I could even really ask why, her you know, her whole thing was that they wanted, you know, $200 for, I think it was a scan or something, like a CT scan, something like that. But it was like, she was like, yeah, it's probably $600, and I, you know, it was like, you know, yeah, I don't necessarily want to pay that right now. And hey, you gotta, you know, that makes sense. I get it. And like I said, if it's so expensive, then how come everybody ain't got no money? You know, you can't put something at a prices that people can't afford, because that's not realistic. But yeah, you know, please pay attention. I mean, like we've talked about before on other shows, and you know, just in life in general. I know y'all have heard all this before. Like, you know, we gotta look out for, you know, ourselves by, you know, saving up money, really paying attention to what's important. Like I said, things like medical insurance, even if you're working, you know, your medical benefit plans, all those type of things. Because yeah, it gets to a point where we really gotta make some decisions in regards to that. Um, so let's see, other laws, Senate Bill 19, um, basically student protections. Um, it's increasing protections for California students by making threats against daycares, universities, schools, workplaces, medical facilities, and places of worship of crime. Okay? I thought that it was already that in certain aspects, but I guess not. I mean, I guess this is specifically saying, you know, it's a crime to attack these places, period. I mean, I know like medical facilities, I thought that there was already laws in place, just like how, you know, post office, certain buildings, you know, hey, the federal buildings or, you know, state buildings, for example, or even county buildings, that I thought there was certain laws put in place, but I guess now they're making it a, you know, blanket thing, which, you know, that definitely should be happening. None of those places are put here to hurt people. Those are all places for people to get help, resources, medical care, um, you know, even church, even places to worship, you know. So I don't necessarily see why people would choose to want to attack those type of facilities. But yeah, so that's the new law, Senate Bill 19, and it amends an already existing law that criminalizes credible threats, you know, and what it's doing basically is just clarifying it that all of that is considered criminal, even if a specific person isn't identified. So, you know, hopefully that'll cut back on some of these school shootings, you know, just mass shootings, different stuff like that, period. Because like I said, especially those places should be off limits anyway, you know. For people that are trying to, you know, fight for a cause or stand up for a cause, is one thing, but, you know, there's a lot of innocent people when you start talking about those type of places. Let me see. Other laws. Now this is let's see, wildlife recovery. There's some new bills. One of them is Senate Bill 495, which requires insurers to offer 60% of the personal property policy coverage limit up to $350,000 in the event of a covered total home loss. Okay, so we all know that there was different, you know, natural disasters that have happened. There's fires, stuff like, you know, what happened down in Southern California. People are still trying to recover from that. And like we said, dealing with the insurance field, you know, so it's a lot of back and forth with money and, you know, insurance companies saying they don't cover certain things anymore, policies getting switched up, or people even being able to, you know, recover from those tragedies. You know, they're having issues when they're filing claims. Um, certain, you know, certain situations they're being told that there's not really no funds for that, or that that's not covered in what they've been paying for. Which again, like you said, everybody's scamming. I don't understand it, and I don't think it's right. So hopefully, Senate Bill 495 will help with that. Um, there's some other laws, Assembly Bill 628, which is a law guided to protect tenants. It requires landlords to provide a working stove and a refrigerator to a rental property in order for it to be deemed habitable. You know, I thought that that was something that was already a law, because I know when you move into a place, if they've already provided the stove and the refrigerator, they charge you for it. So, you know, I guess now it's just making it mandatory that they have to provide those appliances. Assembly Bill 246, it prevents a tenant's eviction if they are unable to pay rent because of delayed or terminated Social Security payments. Now, I think that's a pretty good one. You know, again, the economy, there's a lot of different stuff going on. When they talk about Social Security payments, you know, we're talking about the elderly. And again, due to things like Igor was saying about the government being shut down, and, you know, like that affected a lot of lives. There's a lot of people that weren't getting Social Security on time. There's a lot of people definitely that wasn't getting government assistance on time in regards to EBT, SNAP benefits, you know, WIC, you know, and even money for some folks, you know, general assistance. So I think that that's pretty cool, because again, if me as an individual, if I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, you know, especially like an elderly person, you know, if they're elderly, they got a medical condition, or, you know, hey, they're retired, they get, you know, they're supposed to be getting this much income, you know, a month, quote unquote, and it's not released on time due to somebody else's error, then I don't think that a person should be doubly penalized for that, especially in that aspect, because like Social Security, you know that that's money coming from the government. So it's like, how are you taxing me as an individual for the government, you know, being a little bit behind. So yeah, that's Assembly Bill 246. Assembly Bill 391 is another bill that seeks to streamline interactions between landlords and tenants. It'll allow mobile home parks to deliver notices electronically with the residents' consent. AB 414, will allow landlords to return security deposits electronically if the tenant consents. Now again, those are bills that I thought, you know, that stuff I thought already was going on, you know, with the advancement of everything else being electronically. But obviously, hey, we gotta hold some of these landlords accountable, right? So, yeah, that's what those bills are there for. Plastic bags banned from grocery stores now. So it is official. There are no more plastic bags, no more, nowhere in grocery stores. And that's because of Senate Bill 1053 and Assembly Bill 2236. It prohibits the use of all plastic grocery bags. So from now on, if you're at the store, you can purchase paper bags, or you have to bring your own. You know, those reusable bags, they've been selling them for years now. I'm pretty sure y'all got at least one or two from one of your favorite stores. So yeah, or bring your backpack. You know, whatever you gotta do. But I'm pretty sure paper bags, I think, will be getting cut out soon too, because, you know, I'm trying to think of what's for our, you know, our ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? As far as it's kind of a waste, if you ask me, paper bags, you know, just as much as plastic. You know, it's chopping down trees unnecessarily. But yeah, so no more bags, y'all. Let me see. Regulations on food delivery services, Assembly Bill 578, aims to protect consumers that use food delivery services like DoorDash. It requires the platforms to provide a detailed, itemized cost breakdown of every component of a transaction, including fees and tips. The bill also requires full refunds on incorrect or undelivered orders, and it ensures that consumers have the option of speaking with an actual customer service rep when they request it, instead of having to talk to AI or a chatbot. Now, I've experienced that once or twice. I wasn't too happy about it. I'm not big on apps, and especially delivery app services, but I know that they can be frustrating. I used to work at a store where we used to get a lot of that kind of traffic, and you know, it kind of, to me, it seemed that either the driver was kind of put in a messed up situation, because sometimes it'd be an order coming in and we didn't necessarily have it in the store. So then it was like you said, you know, hey, we gotta either partially refund them, or they have to, you know, explain to the driver, then the driver has to explain to the customer, you know, that they didn't have it, and that there is gonna be a refund or whatever. It just seemed real confusing to me, more of a headache. And I would hate to be a driver, because it puts you in the line of fire. Now you're customer service. You know what I mean? Especially, and you know, when people are trying to get on the phone, like you said, calling around, you know, because you're trying to get to the bottom of something is one thing. It's another thing when you're having to deal with chatbot or AI. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like it when I'm on the phone and it's the digital voice and it's asking you a question, then it's, oh, I can't hear you, can you repeat that? Then you gotta do it 4 or 5 different times, you know, as if you weren't speaking clearly the first time, but, you know, then for it to still say, oh, that they can't quite get what you're saying and finally transfer you to somebody. It's pretty ridiculous. And like Igor was saying, it's cutting people out of jobs, you know? They're adding folic acid to tortillas. Now, I don't understand why, but maybe somebody, you know, can explain to me how folic acid is supposed to be. I guess they say it's supposed to help children. It promotes new cell growth, I guess, and can reduce birth defects by up to 70%. So, Assembly Bill 1053 is requiring all major tortilla manufacturers to add folic acid to corn tortillas and corn masa products. Yeah, mom and pop shops will be exempt from the change, which I don't get that. You know, if it's something that should be in there, then put it everywhere. If it's not, then what are we really saying? Easy privacy and data control for social media users. Bill 656 also goes into effect. It calls on social media companies to make process for users to delete or cancel their accounts simpler. This definitely needs to happen. Let's see. We got another bill about pet protection and regulating animal numbers. Those are Assembly Bills 506, 5 and 519. It's basically to protect household pets. Let's see. Then there was the other bill about declawing cats, Assembly Bill 867. So now, unless it's medically needed, you cannot go and request for them to declaw your cat, because they will not do it. Yeah, so that's couple of them. One of the other big ones that I thought was needed, Assembly Bill 1340. It now allows rideshare workers to unionize. So that means that Uber and Lyft, you know, it's about to be some changes. That's all I can say, and you know, it's well deserved because they go through a lot, you know. But yeah, man, I mean, shit, it's a bunch of more stuff I can't really think off of, about, you know, the top of my head right now, and I know I've been running my mouth for a minute, y'all, so you feel me? We gonna have to catch up next time because I'm running a little over, but yeah, stay tuned. This is what we doing, Street Level Impact, every Thursday, and you know, we got a couple different things that's gonna be coming up for y'all. Some different, you know, guests. We might have some special guest speakers, you know, coming to converse. Maybe we can get some people in some of these industries that we are talking about, so they can, you know, kind of explain their experience or how some of these laws are going to affect them, you know, or how they're going to affect us. But yeah, you know, thank y'all for rocking with me. And I don't want to keep holding y'all up. It's still a holiday, quote unquote. You know, get out there, party. Don't party too hard though. You know what I mean? It is still raining. You gotta be careful. I know me myself, I'm about to head over to the city for First Thursdays. So it's downtown First Thursdays in the city on 2nd Street, and it's going on from 5 to 9. And yeah, we'll definitely be tuning in next week. If any of you guys got any questions y'all want to ask, you can do so by either contacting, one of us on our social media platforms. You can find me under my name, the Tykoon, you know, Igor Beats. You can always find him. We do have a page up for the podcast, so you know it's the SLI podcast on Instagram. And if you have any other questions, you know, pertaining to business, sponsorship, being a guest on the show, you can either contact us there, or you can go to streetlevelimpact@gmail.com. I believe that's what it is. But don't quote me on that. So for right now, hit us up on the social media platforms. Like I said, the Tykoon, DJ Igor Beats, or the SLI Podcast for show on Instagram, and you can tap in. Like I said, follow, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. We're trying to build this thing up. We're doing this for y'all this time, you know, and feel free to comment. Like I said, let me know what kind of stuff y'all want to hear about, or let me know what your opinions are. You know, if you got any stories you want to share on any of the stuff that we talked about, by all means, go ahead, drop it in the comments, you know what I mean, and I'll be able to get back and address it on the next show. And until then, I'm out. This is Bay Life Radio. Street Level Impact. Until we get back. I want to find a